The ancient city of Teotihuacan was settled in 400 BC and grew to become the most powerful city in the region. Today, we can visit the ruins of 2,000 homes, the Temple of Quetzalcoatl, the Pyramid of the Sun, and the Pyramid of the Moon by walking along the 2-mile stretch of road known to the ancient people as the Avenue of the Dead. We're up at 6 a.m. this morning so we can get to the Teotihuacan Archeological site as it's opening.
Packing water bottles, a stand to pee thing, not for me, some sunblock and hand sanitizer, masks, because we think they might be required, power bank and cable, and this jacket because it's a little bit chilly outside, and some change for the bathrooms because apparently you need change to get into the bathrooms when you go to the park, and sunglasses.
The UNESCO World Heritage Site of Teotihuacan is about 50 kilometers north of Mexico City and can be visited by taking public transit, signing up for a tour, by taking a taxi or rideshare app, or by driving. We decided to take an Uber for about 800 pesos. When our Uber driver arrived, he offered to be our driver for the day. Because it can be difficult to get an Uber or a bus leaving Teotihuacan back to Mexico City this time of year, he offered to take us to the archaeological site, wait for 3 or 4 hours while we walked the grounds, then take us for lunch and drive us back to Mexico City. He told us that the price for him to be our driver for the day would be about 2,000 pesos. We weren't totally sure if this was a good price, but it seemed reasonable enough, so we decided to go with it. Chris's dad was visiting us, so a tour for the 3 of us would have been over $200, and the Uber there and back would have been about 1,600 pesos anyways, and for a similar price, we had a private driver for the day. We left our Mexico City neighborhood of Condesa around 7:15 a.m. on a Friday in January, and we were dropped off at the Teotihuacan's door number 1 a little after 8 a.m. Teotihuacan is over 2 miles long, so there are several entrances. We chose to be dropped off at door number 1 near the Temple of Quetzalcoatl so we can see that first, then walk through the site towards the Temple of the Moon at the other end. Our Uber driver would then pick us up at door number 5 in a few hours. This meant that we would only have to walk one way through the archaeological site and be picked up on the other end. We would just need to send him a WhatsApp message when we're ready, and he would meet us there. We paid our entrance fees at door number 1 and walked into the park. We first visited the Temple of Quetzalcoatl. We're about to take our first steps on the pyramid. The steps are pretty steep, but they led us to a higher viewpoint and into the interior part of the temple too. The Temple of Quetzalcoatl is also known as the Temple of the Plumed Snake. It was built almost 2,000 years ago and decorated with carved snakes. The heads of many of these serpents are surrounded by a feather headdress, which identifies them as representing Quetzalcoatl, while others are possibly crocodile heads and likely representations of war. Now it's time to check out the Temple of the Sun.
And the Moon.
Our walk to the 2 temples takes us down the creepily called
Avenue of the Dead,
and past the homes where the Teotihuacans lived. It's estimated that the population of this major center peaked at over 200,000 people. Everywhere we look, there are these little hidden passageways for us to explore. You used to be allowed to walk anywhere in the park, over all of the archaeological features. But due to the popularity of the site and the erosion caused by so many visitors, Mexico is asking the 4.5 million people who visit the site annually to stay on the designated paths. Mexico is also working with the World Monument Fund to put practices into place to better protect the most visited archaeological site in Mexico. The origins of the Teotihuacan people are a mystery. There are some theories that the Mesoamerican city was founded by tribes who may have been forced to leave their homes in other parts of the continent due to volcanic eruptions, but nothing is known for sure. The reason for the disappearance of the Teotihuacan people is also unknown. The city thrived until about 400 AD, but by the time the Aztecs arrived in the region 1,000 years later, the city was empty. What happened to the Teotihuacans between 400 AD and 1400 AD is still a secret to be discovered. Just like what we saw when we were in Greece and Italy, the original floors were actually covered, so they weren't just cobblestone. As we walk around, we can also see the art and architecture that was used to decorate the city, with hints of bright colors everywhere. Here we are at the Pyramid of the Sun, or La Piramida del Sol. Prior to our visit, I found it interesting that though the Pyramid of the Sun is the largest pyramid, it is only located midway through the Avenue of the Dead, and not in a more prominent position at the end of the avenue. But when I arrived at the Pyramid of the Sun, I read a possible explanation for this. The Pyramid of the Sun may not have been for worshipping the sun at all, but the water deity Tlaloc. So perhaps this pyramid might better be named Pyramid of the Water, as it was located close to the canal in the center of the city. Time to head past the vendors to our final pyramid of the day, the Pyramid of the Moon, or La Piramida de la Luna. The Pyramid of the Moon stands dramatically at the end of the Avenue of the Dead and has been calling to us since we started the walk earlier this morning. First, it was far off in the distance, and now here we are, right up beside it, able to see all of the details and the hand-placed stones. As the pyramids are basically solid sand and rock inside, and not filled with empty spaces or rooms, the work involved to build up these 200-foot-tall pyramids must have been tremendous. Before leaving, we spent about 15 minutes touring the small museum located behind the Pyramid of the Sun at door number 5. The museum shows some stomach-turning sacrificial human remains and some cool artifacts from the ancient site as well. They're so cute. Time to message our driver to meet up with us. That was a busy morning. Now let's go get some lunch. Today we're having lunch in a cave. There are 2 cave restaurants near Teotihuacan. One is called La Gruta, or the Grotto, is more famous and expensive, and the other, called La Cueva, or the Cave, is where we're heading on our driver's recommendation. To get into the restaurant, we really do need to walk through a cave. The menu has lots of variety and plenty of things I wouldn't normally eat, but here goes nothing. I've ordered the quail dish. And that's our day at the Teotihuacan Archeological Site near Mexico City. Walking down the Avenue of the Dead to explore the Temple of Quetzalcoatl, the Pyramid of the Sun, and the Pyramid of the Moon.